Hi, this is Lady Lex UK, and this is a Dreams Gadget tutorial. We're still doing the pink ones, and we've got to the text displayer. Now, this is a very, very useful gadget. In fact, people have found ways of using this gadget but way beyond what it was designed to do. Not only does it display text, it's been used to create glass effects, windows. It's been used to use as water effects. It's also been used to create special effects in terms of animated lines and things like that. There's all sorts of things you can do with the text displayer. Somebody even made a platformer just using the text gadget. So this text displayer gadget has a lot in it, and this is going to be a slightly long video, I think. I'll try to do it as quickly as possible, get through it so it's not too long, but there is quite a lot in this gadget. There's one thing that I am not very keen about, and that is its size. It is a very large gadget to put into a microchip. That is the size it appears in the microchip. If I put down a selection of other gadgets, you'll see they're all this size, and for some reason the text displayer is absolutely enormous, regardless of how much text you actually have in it. You can't make that any smaller. You have to make room in your microchip for it, and if you've got multiple ones of these, it can make your microchip quite big and chunky when it doesn't really need to be. I don't really understand why it's this size. I'd love it if they could set it so that we could change the size of it, or just make it small like the rest of them, but for some reason they decided, nope, the text display has got to be enormous. Makes no sense to me, but there we go. Let's just delete that microchip. I don't need that. Right, let's have a look at the tweak menu. So immediately you open up the tweak menu, you can see your text box. There's nothing in it right now. This text into text isn't real text. This will be removed as soon as you start typing in there. But don't be fooled in thinking that there is text in there. And the text displayer will not work unless there's text in there. So if you want to use this text displayer as just a shape, just the box itself, then you need to put in a space into this box in order for it to work. Otherwise, we're going to type in some text. If you've got a lot of text that you want to put in, you're going to be typing lots of text in. You can use remote play. That will give you access to your PC keyboard, and that allow you to type with a keyboard, or you can cut and paste from the PC, and that can be extremely useful, especially when you're dealing with this keyboard, which is not exactly the most comfortable thing to use. Now I've typed in some text, so I'm just going to use the shortcut to put it back in. There we go. So I've got some text now in my text box. There is no input socket for this, so you can't change the text dynamically during the game. In order to put different text up, you need a different text box, which means there's multiple text boxes that need to be added, and there are no, at this point in time that I make this video, there are no text variables, so you cannot change dynamically during a game within its own box, which is a bit of a shame, but there you go. This is the text colour. This affects just the colour of the font. And you can move it around and change the colour like this. And you'll notice as soon as I do that, it also changes the colour of the gadget. Now, it would make more sense to me if it changed the colour of the gadget when you change the colour of the background box. But no, it changes the colour to the font colour. So you need to be aware of that when you're using it. It can be useful, especially if you're going to use this as a box, a shape, rather than with text in. If you're going to put that space in there, if you change the colour of the text colour to the colour that you want the box to be, it will change your gadget colour as well, which can be useful in a microchip for identifying which is the UI or HUD shape that you've used. So I recommend you change the text colour, even if there's no text in this box, to match the box colour, and that will help you a lot identifying your text displayer quickly. Let me put it back to black. This next one is text brightness. Be aware that black is not affected by brightness. So it doesn't matter what I do to this. It doesn't appear to do anything at all. It's only when you've picked a colour that you'll see the text brightness change like so. Obviously, the darker the colour, the less effect you'll get. And you can do that dynamically within the game and change the text brightness. So you could have something flashing or throbbing or whatever. You can get an interesting effect going on there. Text opacity is another slider that will fade your text in and out. This might be, again, something useful. You could animate your text this way using your input socket so that the text slowly emerges. That can be a useful effect. And here is your font selections. There are 46 different fonts. You can move the slider up and down, or you can use the D-pad to go up through the different fonts one at a time, which is probably better for checking these things out. Let's just put it back at the beginning. So that's the first page. It's to do with the text. The second page is to do with the text box. That's this white box here, which you can make invisible so you can't see it. And you can change the colour of it like this. So here's a good example where I would have white text on a red box, like so. You can add a tail shape. This is for speech bubbles. It's not used that very much. I have hardly ever seen this used in Dreams. It's not something people tend to do much with. Text box brightness. Again, if you've got a black box, it won't make any difference. And if you've got a very dark colour, it won't really show up. But there we go. It will go to white at its brightest for some of the colours, depending on how dark you've got it. Put it back to red. Text box opacity. Again, this will make it see-through. Again, very, very useful. If you don't want the objects behind this text to go invisible, you could use opacity on that. Text box curviness. If I move it all the way over to the left, it becomes a rectangle. And if I move it over to the right, it becomes an oval. Now, if you want to create a circular box, you can do this. You need to turn auto fit off, and then you can manipulate the size of the shape like so, so you can get by eye a nice circle. Now you'll notice the text is a little bit awkward now. It's like, well, how do I make this text smaller inside this box? Well, if you increase and decrease the size of your text box like this, you'll notice with the D-pad, then you'll notice that the box and the text changes together. However, if you reduce the size of the text first, then turn auto fit on, then change the size of your box, then go up. There we go. Now I've got smaller text inside a bigger box. So you change the size of your text by making it small, and then you turn auto fit on, and then you can change the size of the background box shape. And that's how you make smaller text in a bigger box. I'll do that again. So let's rewind it. So that didn't work out very well for us. So we're going to take it, pick it up. We're going to reduce the size so we get the text to the size we want. And then we're going to turn auto fit off, and we're going to increase the size of our box. And there we go. it now fits inside our box better. So that's how you would do it. Right, I think we're just going to turn that back down to a square box. There we go. Texture. It's a bit hard to see, to be honest. It doesn't really do very much. It's around the outside of the box. If I turn the scale, the fade amount up to maximum, we can now see it. So it's an interesting effect. Let's just make it large. There you go. You get that nice fluffy edge to it, and there's a few different styles of texture. But to be honest, it's a bit of a weird one. It's not really that useful. It doesn't put a texture over the entire box. You've always got this the centerpiece here. So I don't know. I have seen it used. People have used it to get just something slightly different on their text box, but I don't think it's something you're going to use all the time, if at all. So there we are. There's the texture. I don't think it's used that much. Right, now we go to the border properties. As you can see, you can remove the border if you don't want it there. There's also a shadow. You'll notice it when I remove the border. You can see the shadow quite clearly. That's got a view and on and off there as well. Let's turn the border back on. You can change the colour of the border. So I can make it, make it white. There we go. So we can have a nice white border like that. Border brightness, again. Black, it does nothing, but white will get brighter. Border opacity, again, it will fade off and back in. And border width. It's disappointing, the border width, I will tell you. 100% isn't that wide. I think I'd like it a little bit wider than they're giving us. That's the widest it will go, which is a little bit disappointing, to be honest. I think I'd like it much bigger than that, but it's not. Again, there's a shadow. If you've got the shadow on, you can change the softness. That will make it bigger, look. Let's make it nice and big so we can see it. The opacity, obviously, how dark that shadow is. And the angle, it changes it very subtly. Around 360 degrees, but it's so subtle, it's unlikely that you're going to be using that, to be honest with you. Right, let's go to our next page. Now, this is the alignment of the text. Now, for some reason, this is also going to move my box. So I'm going to have to move it every time I do it, but this is the alignment of the text. So we see at the minute it's center aligned, vertically and horizontally. Let's change the horizontal alignment to left. There we go. It's moved my box so that the text is now left aligned. But if I can move it back again, you can see it's now left aligned to the box or right aligned to the box. There we go. So you can change the alignment, the position of the text within your box. Again, with the vertical, you can put it in the top, the middle, and the bottom of the box. But beware, it does move the text about. Again, you cannot change this in-game. There are no input sockets for this unless you use a keyframe. Now, I said you couldn't, you can't change the text, but things like this that don't have input sockets, you can change with a keyframe. So you can do that in World. Just pop a keyframe in and you can change the alignment buttons. And there you have a change within the game. I don't know why you do that, but you have that option. Right, these are the alignment on the screen. Now, I have a widescreen screen, and for me, this is not left the full left, but I'm assuming this is the full left edge for a small screen, a small non-widescreen monitor. That is the left edge. That's something to think about when you're making your game. This edge here might not be visible to your player depending on what sort of screen they've got. So be careful about putting important UI information on these edges. Try and keep them more central so that everybody can see them. Horizontal alignment, so that places it in the middle, that places it to the right, and then you've got your vertical, middle and bottom. Now if you've chosen one of these, let me just put the horizontal to custom, so I can now move this left and right horizontally, but I can't move it up and down because I've got it fixed to the bottom. This is very useful for placing things. So if you've got a UI, a HUD, and you want to make sure everything's all lined up, this is a good idea because it will give you that option. You all line up all of your text boxes in the same way. You can't go far wrong. You've got limited spacing in that. That's the bottom, that's the middle, that's the top. But it's very good. See, I can't move that box around now because I've got it fixed in the middle and top. So that's very useful for placing things. Right, now we'll go to the next tab over, which is settings, it says. This is where you get an option to put it in the scene. But while we're still looking at it as a screen position, let's have a look at the sort order. Now this only works with text boxes on the screen. So we've got a text box and let's create a new one. And we'll make it blue so we can see there. Right, so we've got two text boxes. Let's move our blue one out of the way a bit. Right, okay. You'll see if I got them both displayed, there we go. You can see that the new text box is appearing in front of the old text box. So every new text box you put in is going to be displaying in front of your other one. Now, if you don't want that order, if you want this one to be in front of this one, we can use sort order. So let's just let's display both of these text displayers. So this is the blue one and this is the red one. So we want the red one to appear in front of the blue one. So if we increase the sort order, we'll make it 9, just it doesn't really matter what number. It's now in front of this blue one. And if I want the blue one in front of that, it just needs to be higher than 9, and there we go, it's now in front. So what you would do is you set that to 1, you set that to 0, and this one is now in front. If you set this to 1 and this to 1, then the latest text box will be in front. Okay, so that's how it will work. So if I make this a 2, the red one goes back in front. So that's the sort order, and that only works on the screen. It doesn't work if you put it in world. Right. So let's have a look at the top then. In scene, this allows you to put your text box. I don't need that blue one. Oh, we've got a blue one now. You can put your text box into 3D space. This is now a physical text box in the 3D space, and you can move it around into your world. Now, what this is very useful for is for putting text actually inside the world. So here is a signpost that I made, and it's got a microchip attached, which has got a display text display here, and that is set to be in the world. So if I open up its menu, you can see that's in the world, in scene, and that's been laid onto the sign there. Now let me go into this display and turn off that backing and turn this text white. That gives you an even better view of text on an object. There we go. Now you may need to turn on the allow rotation option, so that you can, because otherwise it's going to be straight and flat like this, and you can't really maneuver it. Press allow rotation, and now you've got access with the L2 button to rotate your text box at any angle that you need, so you can lay that exactly in position onto a prop asset so that you can see it on there. So you can make like stickers that are flat to something. And this is the reason why you might want to remove shadows and things like that, or add shadows, move the shadows around, just to make it look a little bit more realistic. So there's that. If you've got it in world, you also have the option for these. This is face camera and always on top. So let's show this this working. We're going to need a player. I'll put a player in. Like so. Let's see this working. Right, so there we go. There's the display text. I've got that on a trigger zone. Obviously, you can display the text all the time if you wanted to, but I've got it so it just pops up when the player gets close. Which also gives makes it more obvious that you want the player to read it if it suddenly pops into existence. So here's our text box. It's now in the world. As you can see, it's not on the screen. It's now in 3D space, and I can walk around it, and I get backwards writing if I go around the back. There we go. So that's what the normal settings will do. However, if you put face camera on, now as you walk around it, it actually keeps with the camera, facing the camera, so you can never see around the back. You can never see the text back to front. It will always remain in front like this. And the other option is always on top. So you can see immediately it's popped itself in front of our player. So now this text is always going to be in front of the player. When he walks behind it, he'll always walk behind it. He can't walk in front of the text, so he'll obscure the text. There we go. So there's two different settings, but that only works if you've got it in scene. If you turn in scene off, they'll grey out, so it doesn't do anything like it. The other interesting thing on this is the animation speed. This is how you create like a typewriter effect. I find a speed of 6 is quite good for that. Let's change our text. Let's just turn this one off. Right, let's change our text so it's centered like that. There we go. Put it in the middle. There we are. And we're going to have an animation speed of 6. So let's go into play mode and see it working. There we go. It's typing out. Good for speech things is to have animation on there like that. But you may want that to have some sort of sound effect. And the way you can do that is to use these buttons here. These are basically the controls for the animation. This just tells you this is a start text input. This will start the animation of your text. And this is an output to say the text is finished. This is whether the text is visible. This is whether the text animation has stopped. This is if the text is currently animating, and this gives you a number of a percentage of how much progress it's done. So what we want to do, where it says text animating, we need to link that to a sound effect. So let's go into sound mode and search for a sound effect. So I've got computer typing here, that will do, or we've got keyboard typing. So I'll put keyboard typing in like that. So text animating, I link that to the power. We make sure that that is set on sustain, so that will only be powered when it's got power. It will only make the sound effect when it's got power. We'll rewind that. Go into play mode. And it stops as soon as the text stops animating. So that's how you would do a typewriter effect with sound effects. And that's it, really, for the text gadget. Like I said, there are lots of different ways that you can use your text gadget, more than just the bog standard. I've just only shown you the standard stuff. It's used for creating health bars, graphs. You can do all sorts of things with this. And I couldn't possibly go into everything. So I hope that was useful for you. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in your dreams.